Alright, this video is about how to write a lab report. Alright, these are the things that we're going to type up in either Pages or Word or Google Docs or Notability or whatever. Okay, they have to be typed, and you're going to turn them in via Dropbox. Okay. Now, you don't always have to do lab reports. It will tell you on the checklist if you have to do a lab report. It will say report, and oftentimes it will say to turn in online, so it will say online report. Okay. The title of the file should not be your name. It should actually be the title of the lab. So you want to kind of change that right there. The title of the file should be the name of the lab. Okay. The bold items need to have headings on the left side of the page. They can be underlined. They can be just one space and then the next space. Okay, it doesn't matter. But these are the basic sections that you're going to have. And these are what I grade on. They need to kind of be in the same order, and it needs to be neat because that is part of your grade. Okay, see this neat, orderly section? That should be easy because it's typed. All right. So the first thing you have to do is the title and the name. So it's the title of the lab. It doesn't have to be bolded, but you can put the title of the lab at the top. Put your name and your partner's name. Okay. Underneath that, then you're going to start and put the purpose. So now I would have that bolded or underlined. I put purpose. The purpose of the lab should be a single sentence. A lot of times in the lab, it'll actually tell you, it'll say purpose and then list it in a sentence. Just recopy that onto your lab. Sometimes it'll say overview, purpose, same thing. Okay. The next section is a pre-lab question. Okay. So pre-lab questions, you just answer if they are there. If they aren't there, you don't answer them. You just skip it. All right. So that is a top section that you have to have done before you start the lab. You also, though, have to read the procedure so that you know what's going on in the lab. So I need to read the different steps we're going to do. You need to read the purpose so I know what the lab is about. Okay, and then you can take your pre-lab quiz. So after you complete the parts above and read the procedure, take the pre-lab quiz. We talked about these. They're short. They're usually 5 or 6 questions, and I always ask you what the purpose of the lab is. All right. After you take the pre-lab quiz, then you can go back to the lab and start taking data. So I'm going to take my data, find my lab partner. We both passed our quizzes. We're good to go. We go back. We start the lab. You're going to do the lab. Take any data. Take any observations that you have. You can write them right on the lab handout that you're going to have. The lab handout you're usually going to have online. So in Notability, open it up, write down all your data that you took. Okay. You also, though, have to show me your final product before you clean up. I need to see that you went all the way to the end of the lab and finished it. All right, because I'm going to have a list of people's names, and I'm going to mark down that you finished that lab because I need to know that you actually did this lab. Okay, so you start the lab report, read it, take your pre-lab quiz. From the pre-lab quiz, then you go and take your data. Show me when you get done. Okay, you're all done now. You came back the next day or in the same period, depending on what kind of lab it is. Now you're going to type in any data and observations you have. Okay, so they need to be clearly labeled and retyped into your lab report. So is it grams of something and grams of what? Did you see something turn from clear to white? What were your observations, if there were any, and what kind of data? And make sure you label your data. Data tables are always nice. Okay, after that, then you're going to have your post-lab questions. These are questions that are given in the post-lab section. If there's any work that needs to be shown for a calculation, make sure it's shown here. Make sure you show me your work. How did you get from A to B? Okay. The last section is probably the most important section, and that's the conclusion. All right. It's a short paragraph summarizing what happened in the experiment. Short, okay? I've had good conclusions that are 3 to 5 sentences. I've also had terrible conclusions that are 3 to 5 sentences. I've also had terrible conclusions that are a page and a half. Okay? It should summarize the experiment, and here are some things that it should include. It should be a restatement of your objective or your purpose and your final results. If you are supposed to determine the density of aluminum, what density did you get? Don't just tell me the purpose was to figure out the density for aluminum. Say, I figured out the density of aluminum to be, and then give me your number. Okay? Make sure you comment on any type of reaction you saw if that was your purpose. Make sure you tell me how you completed your purpose, not just this is what it was. Okay? There also needs to be a summary of the lab experiment. I don't need a step-by-step of what went on in the lab. You added 10 grams of this, 3 grams of that, then I did this, then I did that. I don't want to read that. Okay? Summarize. what did you overall do? Did you heat it up? Did you react it with something else? Did you add it to something else? What did you do, basically, okay? It may feel like you're repeating the post-lab questions. That's all right. The post-lab questions are often there to help guide you to a good conclusion. So that's what it's supposed to be. If you had multiple trials, comment on how close they were, okay? Or I did the same thing 3 times, and the first and the third were really close, but that second trial, something happened, and my water didn't all evaporate, and I got a really bad mass, okay? Also, analyze your sources of error. Don't just say, I measured poorly. Why did you measure poorly? What did it do to your results? Did I put it on the balance and it was still hot and it didn't measure it right? Don't just say I didn't have any error, but you had to actually figure out a percent error, and your percent error was 50%. So tell me what went wrong. What did you not do well, or what probably wasn't accounted for in my measurements? And then any suggestions for improving the lab. You don't have to put that in there, but is there something that maybe I should do better next time? Okay. And then the last thing you do is a legal signature and date, and you can pick just a cursive font, or you can just type your name in there at the bottom. Okay. Do not copy your lab partner's lab write-up. You can work with the partner. You can have very similar things, but your conclusions should not be the same. I should not be able to pick out each sentence and say, okay, these 2 were partners. You can definitely tell each sentence matches up. Okay. If they are exactly the same, it's considered cheating, so please don't do that. All right. Here's a rubric there on the back of that pink sheet that's kind of a basic general idea of what you're going to get. Each lab is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to put the post-lab questions in there instead of having it in one section here. It's going to be kind of listed out how many points each one are. So basically going to be all the same for each lab, but not exactly the same. If you have any questions, just go ahead and ask, and we'll figure it out as we go. So there you go.